this is Marie with LivingFelt, and we are coming to you live from LivingFelt because it's Happy Woolly Wednesday! Oh, I hope you say that with us every week. We are so happy that you are here. We are LivingFelt in Central Texas, and you are beautiful BFFs all over the world. I've seen so many of you chiming in. Thank you for being here today. We are today going to be felting what we call the Simply Striking Fire Bowl. A simple little project, great for beginner wet felting. Hey, great if you're even experienced because it makes an awesome hostess gift. It costs less than $10 to make. It takes very little time. You could make a few in a day for sure. And it's just lots of fun. So we're going to be making this together today. And I hope you're saying hi and where you're from, checking in. We are from Central Texas, but as you see, our friends are checking in all over the world. We ship all over the world, and we just love connecting with you through all this fibery goodness. So I want to say hi to a few people. One, I want to say a big shout out to Polly Parnell. She wrote us a great note and said that she's basically been bedridden and not well, but she's been watching back episodes of all of our tutorials all the way back to 2009, which is really fun. You can see me with my Welcome to McDonald's microphone, so that's really fun. And so hi to Sharon Waddell, also in Canada, and Peg Elliott right here in Texas. I see Lori Girl in Tennessee, and Gina in Michigan, Marlene way over there in Oregon, so we're just gonna blow some wet air your way. Donna in Maine, and Sue in the UK, Felipa in Portugal, Sabrina, and my friend Natia across the pond in Georgia. Thank you all so much for being here. This means so much for us. We love connecting with you on Wednesdays, and today we're just gonna have fun with a little wet felting tutorial. So this is an interactive hour. If you stumbled onto this live show, today we're going to be coaching you through this wet felting project, and then we're going to post just the tutorial just itself in a really short format on YouTube. We have that all ready to go. So if you don't want to hang out and go through the chit chat Q&A, look for the link after the live show to this. And you can also, if you want, download the supply list, which is very simple, by the way. But I've also written out the basic instructions for you. So after the live feed, check the description. We'll clean it up. It's all jumbled together right now. But you can download this, get a quick little supply list, and the basic steps that to use as a little reminder of what we're going through today. So our show's interactive. It's an opportunity for you to chime in, ask questions, get help with any challenges that you might have, and even offer suggestions to your fellow peeps out there in the chat world. So it should be right over there somewhere. And if you miss chatting during the live, your question doesn't get answered, or if you just want another chance to win a prize, because everyone who chats has a chance to win a prize, comment down below after the live show. The comments in the live show, after the live show, are an opportunity to get heard, express your ideas, maybe even ask what you want to see next time. And so we have two winners from last week. Now last week we needle felted our little mossy goodness on the bottom of our mushroom. So this was a two-part series that we did. And our winners are, the first one is Mandy Harden. She says, I need to start saving all those leftover pieces because they make a beautiful addition to other projects. And we used a bunch of little add-ons, just a mishmash of things here. And then Emily Tennell says, creasing the fabric temporarily to mark where your frame would be was basically her favorite takeaway. And she thought this harkened back to some 70s decor, which was not a big surprise considering my age. So those two gals, you win some prizes, and we posted what those were last week. Reach out to us if we don't connect with you first. You can use the Contact Us on our web page. Just go here and scroll down below, hit Contact Us, and you can pick out your prizes. So congratulations to those gals. Now the fairies are right offset. They are the magical beings that bless our world here, and they have some fun stuff to share with you relevant to today's project. So please welcome Fairy Hannah. Yay!
Good afternoon, y'all. How are you doing today? Fairy Hannah here. I'm going to show you some of our silks, and where we're going to angle the camera down for this one. So we've got some fun new silks in, y'all. Some dyed silk fabric, which is super exciting. Right now, these are going to be the colors that we have in, but we will be getting more colors in as as the year proceeds. So if there's anything that you're looking for, anything you don't see here that you'd be interested in us ordering, please just let us know and we'll see about getting that for y'all. So these right here are going to be our Habitai and Pongee silk yardage. So we've got charcoal, we've got deep indigo, which is just a beautiful color, forest, and violet. We've got 3 of these colors in our chiffon or silk gauze, and they're going to be charcoal, forest, and violet as well. So with these guys, you're going to see a little bit of a difference. The silk gauze is going to be a much lighter weight silk. You can see that it's much sheer, and the fiber is going to want to travel through it much more easily than it's going to with the Habitai or the Pongee. If you're wanting a little bit more texture, the Habitai or Pongee is going to be a much denser, heavier weight silk. You can see, you can barely see my hands through there. So when you wet felt with this, you're going to see a lot of ruching, a lot of texture. So the Habitai is going to be a natural width of 35 inches, and the gauze is a natural width of 43 inches. And then I've also got this other fun one. It is undyed, but it's super, super exciting. This, it's a little bit harder to see, but it's a crinkled chiffon. You can see it already has some texture in it even before it's felted. So this one's going to have a momet about 4.3, and I did wet felt a little test piece for y'all so you can kind of see how it wet felts and gives you just that fun texture and a lot of movement going on in there. So those are going to be our new silks, y'all. And like we said, if there's any colors you don't see here that you like, please take the time to peruse the website. I've got all these guys. We've got hemmed gauze and hemmed pongee scarves. So if there's any colors that you see here that you would maybe prefer in some silk yardage, please just let us know.
You're getting lots of love on those silks, Miss Hannah.
Yes, I love the silk.
Someone asked, what's the difference between Habitai and Pongee?
They are extremely similar. They're the same. They're 2 different names for the same thing. We say that in the felting world a lot, just because it's so vastly spread around the world. You'll find that a lot of things have the same names or different names for the same product. So the Pongee and the Habitai are going to be exactly the same silks. Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much. I got Miss Fairy Holly coming up, and y'all have a beautiful day. Thanks.
Yay!
Hi everyone. So Marie's going to be using some viscose today when she does her project. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about viscose. I have some colors to show you. We have sprout, cocoa, honey, eggplant, lagoon, evergreen, mushroom, sun, violet, bordeaux, and copper. So this is one of our embellishment fibers, and it's got a nice sheen to it. It's fantastic for wet felting. You can incorporate it into your needle felting, but it's fantastic for wet felting. We sell it in 1 ounce increments, which that's a pretty good amount of fiber there. And we have a surprise for you. It's gonna be on sale. So take a look at all our colors on the website and start shopping. And now I have Fairy Ann.
Thank you, Holly.
Hi friends, thank you so much for being here with us today. I am here to share with you the Wet Felting Tools Bundle. If you're brand new to felting, or if you've been wet felting up a storm and need to refresh your supplies, this tools bundle is a great way to stock your studio. It is going to come, this is the base kit. It is going to come with 2 different types of resist, the thin resist and the thick resist. We've got some bubble wrap here. Of course, our lovely favorite bestest olive oil soap, a ball bras water sprinkler, a yard of the mesh fabric, and I've got some things hiding over here. We've got the bamboo mat, and then a roll of thin plastic sheeting. And this bundle is super fun. You can even upgrade to include larger sizes of both of these resist. You can add super bubble on there, and even some wet felting instructions. So lots of fun.
Donna Judah says, does that bucket come with?
Oh my goodness, I wish. But while it doesn't come with the bucket, it does come with this fun new bag. This is, it's a backpack style, and it's got this fun logo in one of my favorite colors. Thank y'all so much. Next up, we have got Fairy Kayla.
Yay! Thanks, Sam. Woo-hoo.
Hi there, everybody. Fairy Kayla here. Please ignore my scarred face. My cats decided to incorporate it in their racetrack this morning. So, yeah, I don't have any bangs to cover it, so it's just there.
You wear it well, Kayla.
Oh, thanks. I'm showing off a distant cousin of Wildvine today. Our Wildwood is back, and it is awesome. It's got lots of kind of tight curls in there, as well as bigger, longer curls, just to give it that earthy feel. It's got browns to golds to greens to kind of mossy greens in there, and it's real fun for pumpkins, for like the foliage that we were doing on our 2D mushrooms last week. So I kind of bring it up here and kind of just show you all of the goodness. And because I wasn't here last week, I wanted to do a double feature joke this week. So let me set this down. How does the rancher keep track of his cattle?
How does the rancher keep track of his cattle?
With a calculator. And then I got one more. What do sprinters eat before a race?
What do sprinters eat before a race?
Nothing, they fast. I'll turn it back over to Miss Marie.
That's awesome. I know you guys missed Kayla last week. Listen, we have gotten emails, comments on video, and even phone calls asking for her double jokes. So we're so glad you guys like the corny humor. It's definitely our pace, right up our alley, and love that she's willing to play with us too. So thank y'all so much. All right, so for today, we are wet felting this little vessel. And while it's really a fast project, it would take longer than the hour to get it all the way done. So often when I wet felt with you, what we do is we wet felt it and then I tell you how to finish it. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to share with you the process on video, coach you through it, and we'll have time to stop and answer some questions, any questions that you have about this particular project. So we're going to focus on wet felting over a resist, and you really just need a few simple supplies for this project. And to make your resist, to make your template, if you got one of these at home, this was the model for my resist. It's just a big, this is about an 11¼ inch plate. So what we're going to be doing, this vessel is made over this resist. So it's just 11¼ inch circle, and all I did was just trace this over my thin resist. So if you have a big plate or even a small plate, you can take a stab at making a vessel like this. And then, as I mentioned, the supplies are really very simple. We're working with just 1 ounce of 19½ micron merino top, and then we're working with viscose as the embellishment fiber. There's nothing else to this vessel. So I used coffee bean in this vessel, and on the video I say it's black, but that's because I originally was going to make a black and different colored vessel, but the inside is just the coffee bean. It's the 19½ micron. And then the outside are these viscose fibers. So it's red, and I listed these in the Facebook group. If you're not in our Facebook group, check it out. Let me just pop that up for you real fast. The Facebook group where we hang out all week, and sometimes you get little advance notice of stuff in the group. But we're using red, marigold, and honey, and that's it. So the whole project costs like under $8 in fiber to make, and it would make a really awesome hostess gift. It's a really great primer if you're just learning to wet felt. And the reason I wanted to share something with you that's so simple is I know very often people to say, I'm timid about wet felting, I'm shy, I haven't tried that yet, I haven't wet felted over resist yet. But I want to encourage you to felt something that is, one, easy to felt and will felt well for you. So you may not have these particular fibers, but if you can get them, if you can get a nice fine merino top or even the short fiber bats, I think you'll find that this is a really easy project to do. It's not intimidating at all, and you'll get great results. And so if you've never felted at all, then start with our pancake lesson. And in the description, we include a link to the pancake lesson. Start there so you learn how to make a good flat piece of felt, and then try wet felting over resist. But the 19 micron is so easy to work with. We're going to jump right into this. Is there anything I should address before we get started, Anne? Okay, good. We're on a roll. We're on a roll already. All right. So just a couple of the other supplies. You're going to see them in the video and shared some of them with you. You need a couple of towels, and I'm going to show you how I do my layout. Our olive oil soap, a kitchen sponge at least, and my two rolling power tools besides your hands for felting are a half pull noodle and a half closet pole. This is just like a 1.5 inch wood dowel. It's been in my studio for many, many years, and you just can't go wrong if these are the only two things you have. So is summer over? Summer's over. But you can probably still get pool noodles at the dollar store, and if not, maybe you have a pool supply place. So we don't sell those two things, but everything else we have. All right. I am going to walk you through this project, and we'll just get through it the best we can together. You only need a couple of hours, I think, to do this project, which is nice. Pretty nice. Okay. I'm going to sit here with you and talk you through this. Now, so we are going to be wet felting over resist, and the thing that's different about this is we are wet felting over an open resist. So we have a few other videos in our wet felting section where we wet felt over a closed resist. The small little vessel we wet felt with our MC1. We encase this completely with wool. I think the wrist warmers we encase completely with wool. Maybe our wet felted gnome doorstop guy, he's sort of a door stopper, you know, mantle sitter. We encase it fully with wool. But in this case, we're going to leave it open, and that'll be another thing for you to learn. So let's jump into this, and we'll pause at a couple of sections to answer your questions. Okay, here we are with the merino top. I've broken down the merino top into 1/4 ounce increments. So you're looking at 2 ounces of fiber split in length into 1/4 ounce increments. So just break it in half first and then split each half into 4 pieces. You want it to be narrow, and you'll see why for control. Here's the viscose, red, marigold, and honey, and that gives us this nice little flame effect. You can use any colors you want on this project. I was originally going to go like teals and turquoises. I'll probably still do that. But half table setup, I like to put down my grippy mat, 1 towel going across my table, and then 1 towel going up and down. That up and down towel becomes my rolling towel. Then we're going to put down our bubble wrap, and I saw someone ask, can they just use the stuff at the UPS store? Yes, ma'am, that's perfect. A single sheet of plastic there, thin plastic. All the stuff comes in our wet felting tools kit, right? All of it's in there. There's my little resist, and then here's my fiber. I'm going to lay out this fiber in a crisscross fashion, and we're going to extend it about 1 inch over the resist. You want your edges fully covered, and the reason I divide it into these really small increments is so that I can control it. I want to control the width, I want to control the evenness, and I want it to pull off like nice uniform chunks. So notice here that we are overlapping about 1/3, just the wispy end, and I've come up above the halfway point of this vessel. I want the wool to go above the halfway point so that it really hugs. And again, I wanted this vessel to be tall as opposed to squat. So this is just a suggestion. You might give it a try. Each row overlaps about half. So this is called shingling, and this is called a crisscross layout. It's a great project to practice pulling off wool evenly and uniformly. It's better to have more, we say, it's better to have more thin layers than fewer thick and chunky layers. And part of the secret to that is dividing the wool into these narrow strips in the first place. This gives you the most control. So notice that I pat the wool down as I go. Sometimes it's just sticking up, sometimes they're static in the air, but you also are looking all the time for bare spots and feeling for bare spots. When we lay out our fiber, when it's dry, in these stages, this is the time to notice whether there are any bare spots. If you're having any challenges with uniformity, with thin spots in your felt, with it being slightly lumpy or just uneven, this is the time to correct it. So now I'm going to go up and down. We went horizontal, up and down. So this is the traditional crisscross layout, and I'm stopping just right there at the top. Wet felting is as much important in the layout as in how you agitate the wool. So I can't overemphasize that enough. And if you practice with real simple designs like this, one solid color with just a simple design layer, it's a good opportunity to just practice the fundamentals and build your skills so that you learn how to make a really good felt. We're going to just check over this piece. If you see any bare spots, this is the time to pause, pat down your fiber, feel it with your fingers. Don't just look with your eyes. Like if you can see the resist underneath, you definitely want to put down another piece of fiber, but feel it with your hands. And if you just feel a thin spot, even if you're not sure, well then just drop a little tinier piece on there. So this layer, or the crisscross, forming, you know, 2 layers of fiber here on the one side, was 1/4 ounce. This is where the mesh comes in. The mesh is my favorite for a barrier between your wet soapy hands and wet soapy wool, because the wool wants to stick to you. I prefer to wet through the mesh because I can feel it. I load my sponge up with water, I load it up with soap, and then I'm pressing water and air in and soap in. I'm sorry, water and soap in and air out. It's a very controlled way of wetting, and you're pressing all the water from the center towards the perimeter. This allows me not to get it too wet because I'm not just dumping a bunch of water on there and then mashing it out. At this point, I'm only pressing, no rubbing at all. We want to just press as much air out as we can at this stage, and then gently peel back your mesh. Hold it at that shallow angle so that the fiber doesn't stick to it. Now I like to put the plastic back. The plastic just allows me to handle the fiber, slide it around really easily, and it's a good support when you're rolling as well. So notice I'm not really smearing it, I'm just flattening the plastic. And then we flip. Our goal is to get this fiber hugging the resist as closely as possible. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do that. The first way here, we're going to just use our hands. First, I'm going to have my head in the way so you can't see what I'm doing. First, I pull the bottom plastic up, and then I'm going to use my hands to guide the fiber around to the resist. You want to hug it snugly, and getting good adhesion to the resist is a little bit easier when you do multiple layers of layout, wet, wrap, layout, wet, wrap, rather than piling a whole bunch of wool on the resist and then wrapping it over. So your goal here is to get it snug up against the resist, very snug. And then we repeat what we did on side 1. We are going to do the same crisscross layout, and we're going to extend the fibers over the edge. Quick look, you don't see any dry spots underneath that resist. If you were doing a thicker project and you saw a big dry spot, you could flip it back over and add some water there, because though a dry spot is also going to mean there's more air in it. So you can see kind of what's happening when you flip it over. All right, so this part we're going to speed up a little bit. We're doing the very same layout that we did on the other side. Crisscross layout. But take your time. I was telling Anne, I spend a ridiculous amount of time laying out each side. It's somewhere between like 4 and 5 minutes, just because I guess I like it. It's meditative. There's no reason to really rush. So this is, 5 minutes and 30 seconds or something, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. There's our layout, and we're going to wet out just like we did on side 1. Now, the thing here, when we get to the other side, I'm going to show you a different way to get the fibers wrapped. Check this out. Now that it's wet, you can use the top layer and just gather it up. Pull it all towards the middle and let it do the work for you. There we go. Then just use your hands and get all the fibers to be laying down and not have big wrinkles in them. Honestly, when your layers are this thin, the wrinkles will work themselves out, but you may as well just get everything nice and straight. Now, in this final phase, here we're going to cover each side one more time with 2 crisscross layers, and what you see is on this one, I'm allowing the fibers to stick over the edge. When we get to the other side, we will not do that. We will get them to stay on that one side. You don't want the edges to be too thick or thicker than the rest of the project. So now we're just going to stay within the perimeter of the circle as much as possible. You may get a few little trailers over the edge. If you do, just make sure that you get them laying down before you start rubbing. You get everything all snug. And we have our design layer to put on yet, so there's no real concern about that. So here we are just doing our final crisscross layer, and all I want you to see is that we're staying within the perimeter. At each point, you might find that you really need to dry your hands and get all of the soap off there. It'll kind of stick to your hands and you're trying to lay it down while the layers underneath are wet. That's just part of the game. That's just, part of how it goes. But doing multiple thin layers and wrapping them around, this is the most foolproof way to get a really good finish on your project. Now, the viscose. I'll just pause here for a real quick second before we get to this design layer, and let me know if you have, and this is really basic, but let me know if you have any questions up to this point. Is there anything? Anne's giving me nods. I know it's going kind of fast, but it goes slow when you do it, so there's that. Yeah, okay, what would you like to know? How can we help?
I think felting friends want to know what the purpose of shingling is.
Okay, so when we are trying to get all of these fibers to basically entangle together, when you think about how something is woven, when you weave something, you have a whole bunch of threads going up and down and a whole bunch of threads going across, but you are interweaving them like this so that they form a nice fabric. We are trying to do the same thing here, and that's why as you gently back off in the shingling and then you bring these across, what you have are more ends that are going to have opportunities to entangle with the other pieces and parts. So when you're working with something like a top, this particular top, you're working with a staple length and all the fibers are going in the same direction. The fibers can only interweave with each other or felt with each other when they get a chance to go upsy downsy and alls aroundsy with each other. When you have something like a bat, whether it's a merino short fiber bat or our MC1 batting, the fibers are already all mixed up. That's why you can basically plunk it off the bat that you get and lay it down and it will felt because things are already all mixed up. So when we agitate, our goal is for these fibers to interlock on each other. Remember that the fibers have one-way scales on them, if you will, kind of like the zip ties from the hardware store. And once we get them to tangle, they don't want to come undone. So in order to get them to tangle up, we've got to get these ends where they can get over and up and down and around each other, basically. Long answer to a short question. Okay, what else would you like to know?
Marion asks, could you use MC1 for this project?
You can absolutely use MC1 for this project, Marion. So MC1, for those who don't know, is our signature batting. It is a domestic fiber. It's a short fiber. It's about 25 microns. It does felt well, but it's a bit more spongy, and so it takes a little bit longer for the water and the soap to penetrate it, and it takes a little bit longer to felt because it's not quite as fine. But we do have a video online where we wet felted the MC1 batting into a vessel. I even have the vessel on my desk, but it's a little indigo vessel, and we used a resist smaller than this, but we went all the way around, and the difference was we cut the hole in the middle. So you could use MC1 for this. Be a little more patient with the viscose binding to it. And don't use water that's too hot. I would just give those two time to come together, because the viscose doesn't have scales. When you see fiber that's very shiny, it doesn't have scales. So your benefit of using a really fine fiber with something like the luster fibers that we carry, be it tussa, bamboo, or viscose, is that those fibers are going to intermingle. And someone asked, I didn't recall the name because it was before I came back on, do you need to put wool on top of the viscose? And the answer is no, and you'll see that in the design phase, that wool, when it migrates in felting, it goes all directions, not just this way and not just this way and this way, it also goes this way and this way. So it will grab on to the viscose fibers without putting wool on top. Okay, something else?
Yes.
And thanks for your questions, y'all. They help everybody.
DL asks, how much soap and water are you using in the project, and can you use too much of either?
Okay, DL says, can you use too much soap and water, and how much am I using? I use enough, and I didn't show you in this, but I will tell you that I have a Fundamentals of Wet Felting video coming out in our online school, which should be launching. It's September still. I'm going to say early October. We're getting really, really close. And I'm going to go over that with you and help you felt samples. But it'd be a good skills builder. But you really just want enough water that, like, when you press on the project, the water dissipates in a count of like 2 seconds. But with a project like this, it's very thin. We're going to wet all the way through. It's okay to flush the water through. And then if you have a puddle before you go to roll, if you have a puddle on your perimeter, just mop it up with your sponge. As soon as you go to roll, water's going to squish out. Let it squish out to your table. We're not using much pressure when we roll. Let that water squish out, and that's going to help regulate the amount of water in this project particularly. If you're using something like MC1, if the project feels dry, add more soap. If it feels like it's not hanging on to enough water, then add more soap. If you use something like our olive oil soap, and you saw there how sudsy it is, that's pretty low suds. So I would encourage you to, I stay away from dish soaps. Some people use Dawn and stuff, but if you use something like this, it's got a very high vegetable content, which got that oil content and just helps bind everything together. So as much as the pH of the soap helps open up the fibers to felt, it opens up those scales, it also acts like a really great glue to hold all of that moisture in and sticky kind of the fibers together. You can have too much soap, especially if it's a sudsing soap like a dish soap, because all of those air bubbles cause the water to float away. And what would happen is, as you're rubbing or massaging, it feels like you can see the soap, but your hands aren't gliding. And that's a part of the purpose also, is it helps you massage the fibers without disrupting them. So, if you make the investment in the olive oil soap, I promise you won't be dissatisfied. I've never, ever, ever had anyone say that it turns out that they didn't like it or found it wasn't of great value. And you can dry it out in between uses because it's hard milled. Like, I just wet felted with this yesterday and it's already dry. So dry it out in between uses. Don't let it melt in your water, and it'll serve you very well. I hope I answered that. Okay, anything else? Are we ready?
One more question.
Okay, one more.
How many layers of wool total per side?
Okay, each of these, I was telling Anne that I kind of speak as each crisscross as one layer, and I know that sometimes I confuse people. So what we did with this vessel, what we did with this resist for the wool is, and how I like to speak about this, and I'll hold it this way so we think about it the same way. This is side 1, this is side 2, and then I'm going to call these edges. Even if it's round, I'll call it 4 edges, or left and right edges and top and bottom edges. So on side 1, we did 2 layers. At first, we did an up and down, and as we did a side to side and an up and down, that was a 1/4 ounce. We flipped it over, did the same, flipped it over, did it again, flipped it over, did it again. So each side has 4 crisscross layers. Each side has 1 up, 1 across, 1 up, 1 across. Good? Each side has a 1/2 ounce. That's what it amounts to. I call it a 1 ounce wonder. Okay, let's rock and roll this thing. We're going to lay out the viscose. You're going to see how easy this is. I really didn't fuss with it. Here we go. Just grab some, and it's not even all that even, but we sort of radiate it out from the bottom as far as you want it. And I wanted some of the brown to show through my vessel. You could put it on more thickly than this. You do need the fiber to be able to go up through the top of it, but I wanted the brown to show through. I didn't want this to be solid, solid, solid. You could put more on than this. And if you put just too much, well, then it's going to feel like it's sitting on top because the viscose itself doesn't felt. Notice here I did not add any water, but I am adding soap. I used the water that was already in the project down below. So at some point you don't need to add water to every layer. And you do need to, pay attention as you take your mesh off and nurse it a little bit. When we flip it over, we're just going to do the same thing. Look how easy that was, just pulling that forward, and now we're going to keep the viscose mostly on this side. There are a couple of spots where I wish I had gone a little bit better over the edge, but you just want it to wrap around and not have a line around the edge of your vessel. So get it how you want it, and you could lay it in straight lines like this, or you could also just squiggle it out. And we did that on a recent project, maybe on our mosaic felt fabric where we made pre-felts. So check that out if you want to do that. So look here, I'm pulling up the last little bits over the side, and now we're ready to felt. We have this thing, we have one design layer encasing the entire vessel, and now it's time to felt. We're going to roll through the plastic, and at first I'm going to rub through the plastic. Massage towards the center, towards the center, towards the center. You want this fiber hugging your resist. So you don't want to mash the heck out of it at this stage. It's got water in it, and the fibers are not interlocked or felted yet. So your pressure should be very gentle. You should not be disturbing what is underneath, and that's the point of wetting the outside of the plastic. So we just want to massage at this point. Some people are going to ask, can you use the palm washboard? Yes, you could, but we're not even, you could rub this whole thing and not roll it, but you're going to get better results if you roll it, and it's not hard. It's so lightweight that it's not going to take any effort to roll. And we're going to roll with our pull noodle. The difference between this, and I'm going to pause this for just a second so that I can tell you, the difference between this project and most of the projects that I share with you is how we roll it. And this just came down to how I wanted it to be shaped. With this vessel, what you're going to see here, and this rolling part's going to go really fast because it's really boring, but with this vessel, I didn't treat all sides equally in order. I roll it from side to side. I'm going to roll it from this side, then from this side, then flip it over and roll from this side and this side before I roll from bottom to top and top to bottom, because I wanted my vessel to be more tall, so I wanted it to shrink in this way more. And you'll see throughout the rolling phases that we do that I'm constantly rolling it more this way because I don't want to shrink the fibers this way and end up with a squat vessel. I do roll from top to bottom, but I roll more from side to side so that I'm coaxing this thing to be more narrow rather than even or rather than squat. Cool? Cool. Okay, so we are rolling in the pool noodle, and you roll up the whole package there with your bubble wrap, and then comes the point of our rolling towel. So our rolling towel just serves only that purpose, and I'll show you the rock and roll and then we'll blaze through it. Rock and roll in this fashion 25 times, and then we're going to give the packet a quarter turn on its axis. I'll show that to you. So that we roll 100 times, there's my quarter turn from each edge. So I'll do another 25, and then that quarter turn, and then the final 25. So this is how I get 25 rolls from each edge. I write this up in the simple PDF instructions. They're not overly detailed, but we do outline every step. So here's the rolls, and now we go to the other side. 100 rolls, man, I'm fast. Flip it over, 100 rolls, and then the other long edge, and then we go from top to bottom and bottom to top. Now, I've only rolled this thing 100 times from all the edges. That's it so far. I'm coaxing it in, I'm feeling how it's doing, and now comes my closet pole. I like to, basically I'm putting a smaller diameter in there, and I can use more pressure at this point. From this point forward, our goal is to get to this phase right here. So let me pause. Let me pause here and show you what we're looking at. If I go over here. So what we're looking at is I want the project to be puckering in this fashion right there before I take it off the resist. So a common question is, how do you know when it's time to move to the next stage? Or how do you know when it's time to come off the resist? When you have an open resist, sometimes it's a little easier to see when that's happening. And as you can see here, the project has shrunk smaller than the resist and therefore is causing the resist to buckle. If your resist is too thick or too rigid and your fibers are fine, you might find that it holds it at bay a little bit, or the fibers sometimes even want to pull off the resist if it's way too rigid for the thin layers. So working with the thin resist is really going to help you. And yeah, so here's the buckling, and that's what we want right there. And notice I'm just inspecting it and showing you that it's buckling. That means it's time to come off, but we only have a soft felt at this stage. This is, let me cut over here and take that out so you can see the whole thing. This is a soft felt, and we still have work to do. The first thing I want to do is work on that line. It's not a seam, and you'll know that when I turn this inside out. So let's pause for a second. I want to show that to you. Right here, I am rubbing the line, but I'm going to turn it inside out. And as you can see, there's no line in here. There's no line. A seam is when the project has slipped off of the resist. So imagine my hand is the wool. When the wool has slipped off the resist, just like that, and you keep rubbing and rolling or whatever, and that little bit felts together. And that's when you get a seam. So if you see that happening, remember to massage back towards the center. That's why we don't even go from, when you have that open resist, it's why we don't go from the top down first, because that would coax it to kind of scoot off, since there's, you know, nothing grabbing onto it from the other side. So that's a good reason to go side to side first, and then bottom to top before you go top to bottom. But you can see here that there is no seam. There's just a line where it starts to train itself to be flat. So work that out. Work it with you. Start right there when you take it off. If you happen to be working with a more coarse fiber, or even thicker layers, you might find that the inside at this point is less felted than you anticipated and less felted than the outside. So make sure that you turn it inside out, that you felt it appropriately with the right amount of pressure based on how the fiber is felted. If it's getting roughed up between your hands, basically, well then bring your mesh into place and do your massaging and your rolling with some kind of barrier between your hands so that you don't mess it up. But all I'm doing here is just rubbing that little line out because I don't want to see it at all. And then I'm going to felt this vessel inside out a bit. So you always, when you have that opportunity to turn it inside out, you may not always on all of your shapes. If the top is super narrow, you may not have the opportunity to turn something inside out, but if you can, do, and felt it from the inside as well. Oh, all I'm doing is hand rubbing. This is more agitation. And you can also roll over I would roll over my dowel at this point. I wouldn't roll over the pool noodle, mostly because it's like you don't need a very big core. You need the closer these fibers are together as you're agitating them, it's sort of like the faster they felt. So even felting them without a core is really great, and that's what I'm going to do, is just roll it all by itself. So at first I'm still just getting past this pre-felt stage, and I'm rolling on our regular nanobubble. You'll find that rolling on it as a work surface is kind of unsatisfying because it's real slippery and the bubbles are real gentle, so they don't provide much friction while you're rolling, and that's why we have our super bubble, which I'm going to bring in here in just a moment. As I feel the fibers coming together, I can see that I'm not disrupting them with my hands. They're really forming a nice skin, and we have a nice felt forming. You can see I can handle it. It's not coming apart. That's when you know you have a soft felt stage. Once you have a soft felt stage and you start to feel it come together, you have it felt, then we get to fulling. And all I'm doing right now is getting to what feels like a really good felt. The fulling part is basically like a lot of the same actions, but a little more speed, a little more pressure, and so now you can see I have the super bubble in place. The super bubble just gives you a really nice surface to work on and push against without the wool project, the felted project, sliding all over the place. I've rolled up in it projects too, but I prefer to use it more like a work surface these days, most of the time. So we're going to keep with this here and getting very close now. So can I answer any questions? Do we have questions before we move on? Okay, so Anne says yeah. All right, what can we do? And thanks y'all for going through this with me. Is this format okay? Do you think it's working? Okay, good. A little coaching. And like I said, we'll put up just the straight speed video without all of this so that when you just want to get back to it, you can watch it. But it goes about that fast. Okay, what are your questions?
Peg wants to ask, did you just rub each side once before you started rolling?
Oh, before I started rolling at all? Yeah, very little. This project is between all of the handling that you see, I'm going to say it's 95% rolling. 95% rolling, and that's because it's really easy to do, and it's kind of foolproof. All the things that bring this project together. But yeah, mostly it's rolling, and all I did was, I'm just making sure that my layout and my wet out and my flipping all around, that I just coax the fibers back onto the resist one more time before I start rolling. It's just kind of a ready check, seatbelts are on, lights are on kind of thing. Everything's where it needs to be before we start rolling. If my project were thicker, if my fibers were slower to felt, then I would probably hand roll longer. And if you watch our MC1 video where we felt over the resist, you'll see that I wait to roll until the fibers are closer together, and that's because just everything is loftier, and I don't like to put the pressure of pressing and rolling on something until the fibers get a little more closer together. You could, but it's just a personal preference. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks for your questions, y'all.
Faith asks, when you say, when I feel the wool coming together, what are you feeling for exactly?
You go from feeling like, when you're first touching the fibers, they're all really loose. And then when you lay them down, as you see in the layout, and notice for yourself, so make a pancake first. By a pancake, I mean just make a flat piece. Look, you could make it round or you could make it square, but make a flat piece first. And what would happen is, if you just touch it when it's wet, it's going to move. So as you start to agitate it, you feel, one, it feels more compressed. It feels like there's less air in it. It starts to feel less fragile. And you see when you get to the buckling stage that you could pinch it. You can pinch it and it comes up as a solid piece of fabric. And what you'll notice, especially if you go with what I'm saying, this is like a foolproof method. Felt something thin, use a fine fiber, keep your design simple, and just learn how that feels, because it's like training yourself to make dough and learning how the dough feels when it's ready for whatever is the next stage. So what I'm feeling is that the fibers are more compressed, there's less air, and they have more integrity. They're less fragile. Good question. Good question, but something you need to train your hands to feel. Cool. Anything else? We're good. Okay, so let's roll. We're almost ready to wrap this thing up here. Here we go. Right now I'm doing what I call wadding, and that may be a technical term, I have no idea. I've always called it, and throwing. Wadding and throwing. If you felt it with me at all, you heard me say that if you want to control shrinkage, don't wad and throw. So right here, what I'm wanting is the piece to get a little more organic. I'm wanting to kind of get the fibers to get a little bit of a kink in them, and I want the top to be a little more organic. So I've not fussed over that top rim this entire time about keeping it even and straight. It's not like a hat. I want this to be just have a little bit of an organic wave to it, and that's why I wad and throw it a little bit. And now I'm dunking it in hot water. This water is plenty hot, and this is the final stage of fulling for me, is to heat the project up and take it through the paces one more time, because I want it to be really fully felted. I don't want any part of this unfelted, and I'm pushing for a shrinkage of about 40%, which is what I think we got on this project, and all I really did was roll, roll, roll using my super bubble. The whole project, the whole felting project, maybe took, I want to say an hour, about that much time. It might take you a little bit longer the first time, or an hour and a half. You know, I always start and stop and have things to do in the middle, but it really doesn't take that long to make this thing. And all I'm doing is some final shaping of how I want it to be before we rinse all the soap out. And you'll know you're done because, let me just say this one last thing, you'll know you're done because when you handle it like this, now the fibers aren't messing up. If there's still loft in those fibers, or if you're not sure at all, you could rinse it and let it sit overnight and then see, is it felted? If you come the next day, if it feels like as you put your fingers through the layers like this, if it feels like the layers are shifting, or if it feels like anything is loose and you don't have a solid piece of fabric, go back and roll it right then. Heat it up, get your closet pole, use some pressure, use the super bubble if you have it, use some pressure, put your two hands together and massage it even, which I didn't even do any palming on this project, it felt so fast, but I know that you might not have the same fibers. So if it feels like it's not a solid piece of fabric that you could just cut through and you know it would stay together, then just felt it some more. Here in the final stage, I've rinsed out all of the soap and water, and I just use room temperature water for that because I've already had it hot. I've just got my vessel of water. I'm going to drop in a glug of vinegar. I really don't measure it. This is what I do. A glug of vinegar, and submerge my project in it while I clean up. So 15 minutes to clean up and tidy everything up. And that's all you need to do is let it sit in here. This helps the wool get back to its naturally acidic state. It's going to help with its natural softness, its natural sheen, and helps cut that soap. The soap, being more basic, really just isn't good for the fiber. This project, I don't want to get it overly dry because I'm going to block it while it's damp. So all I did was roll it in a towel. I did not use my regular spin dryer to get all of the water out. I just wanted to get it to be a nice damp state. And we're going to block this thing over a very fancy block that you can pick up at your local grocery store. It's called Ye Old Rubber Balloon. So grab a balloon, and we're just going to fill the vessel with the balloon, and this is going to prevent it. Sometimes, after you felt, you get these little crinkles and wrinkles and you don't love them, and half the time I tell you, or 90% of the time I probably tell you to steam press it. Well, another way is to stuff it, and you can stuff it with a balloon to block it overnight. Now, this is going to help just expand all the fibers, so fill it up all the way, or you could stuff it, if you wanted to shape it, you could stuff it with fabrics and things, but I'm just forming a little tiny rim on the bottom so that it will look like a little vase. I didn't want it to be weird. I wanted it to have like a little foot. So right now I'm just finding what feels like the natural bottom, and then all I did was a simple little pinch technique. Scoot it off the balloon a bit and go around and pinch a tiny rim. That's it, and I'll show it to you here right now. Flip it sideways. Just create a tiny little foot for it to sit on and let it sit overnight. So there's my foot. So that's all I did, was just create that little tiny rim, and that, my friends, is the whole enchilada to get to this point, which is this cute little fire bowl vessel. Very easy, very fast to make. If you want to stiffen it so that it is, you know, it's flexible. It's flexible like a hat would be, if you will. Well, a hat we would block and starch and steam press for sure, because you want it to hold up. But you could, if you wanted to stiffen this, then I would encourage you to treat the inside with something like a fabric stiffener or a draping liquid. I would probably cut this 50-50 with water, and then just paint brush the insides of the vessel so that it's stiff and doesn't mar the outside, because the outside will not look the same once you put that stuff on it. It's going to take away from this beautiful texture that you have going on, and that beautiful sheen when that stuff is sitting on top. So if you want to treat it, then consider treating the inside. But look, you really don't have to. You can just serve it up just like this. Cool. What else? Anything else before we go? Anne says yes.
Alrighty.
Thanks y'all for playing with us. We really appreciate it.
A few folks want to know, can you overroll? And if your project shrinks too much, is there anything that you can do to get it to go back?
No. Okay, so when sizing matters. And when does sizing matter? Sizing matters when you need it to fit, like to be a wearable item. It might be a head, you might need a hat to fit, you might need wrist warmers to fit, you might need slippers to fit, you might need something to be able to hold your phone or hold your tablet and be the right size. So it's possible to over shrink something, and that's why, and you can't undo it. Now, you can stretch things out when they're wet, and you could try and shove the thing in it that it will be while it's still damp so that you block it to be a tight fit. But if you go too far and the thing you want just will not fit in it even when it's damp, you may have gone too far, because it's when it's damp that you're still going to have some stretch. So if you're concerned, you need to stop and check that size before you go too far, because sometimes you can still stretch things when they're in that damp state. And if it doesn't, it feels like you can almost, well, then add some steam. Bring in your steam iron or handheld steam wand, or you could, put it over a boiling water pot if you needed to, and really try and stretch it back out. Stretching and pulling can give you a real nice finish on your felt anyway. But if you've really gone too far, you may not be able to undo it. So the best thing to do is to measure your shrinkage by making a sample in the beginning before you start, using the same type of fiber, the same design fibers, the same number of layers to achieve the thickness you're going for. You might want a thin squishy hat, you might want a super thick durable purse. So you need to use the same number of layers you think you want, and then measure the shrinkage you get. So in my Fundamentals of Wet Felting, again, which is going to be in the school, I teach you how to make samples so that you really start to build a skill and you learn how to record what you did. But making a sample and estimating your shrinkage in the first place is important. And usually what happens is there's this range, there's this area where you could stop felting on some things. Like you could felt it more if you wanted, or you could leave it where it is. And that's kind of your sweet spot where you want to be, is like you can call it done, but if you wanted to shrink it more, you could. So it's really about being in that last, I want to say 10%, but it's probably more like a 5% range where you have room to felt it more if you needed to. Like if you want to make a dress and you wanted it to fit, I don't know, mini me or bigger me, I could almost felt it to fit bigger me, and then if I wanted it to felt mini me, I could roll it a little bit more. And that's kind of the sweet spot when it comes to fitted items that you want to be like, yeah. So you want it felted enough that it's durable enough for the project you need. So you can't really go backwards. So then the question is, can you over roll? Is the same like, can you over felt? And that answers the same question. And that's the idea, is that once those scales are locked on, they don't go backwards. So that's why once you throw that wool sweater in the washing machine, now it's tiny. So turn it into something else because you done it. That's it. Anything else?
Linda asks, can you use fibers other than viscose top for the embellishment?
Oh, yeah. Use anything you want. We just wanted to bring in viscose. I don't know how often I felt it with viscose, but if you wanted to do the same thing, somebody had posted something online and asked me, was it the viscose? And I said, I thought it was the bamboo, and this is the bamboo. I think it was. So bamboo is lovely, and Tussa silk is lovely. Real quick, I brought just a couple of samples for you. So let me show you that here. Oh, I'm not all that close, but let me, I'll hold them up for you here so you can see them. So these are 2 cobweb scarves. We wet felted these in a free tutorial. One was live. I think this one, I don't remember now. Maybe this one was live, and this one is a 20-minute video, and the live one is on our Facebook, just Facebook/LivingFelt, and the quickie 20-minute one I shot in my home studio is on our YouTube channel. But in these 2, this one is bamboo, and here's the bamboo in this piece right here. You can see it's purple. It's these purple strips right here. It looks the same. It doesn't have quite as much sheen as the viscose does, but it's still just gorgeous. And then this is the Tussa silk, which is feels a little more of a closer cousin, but the difference is that Tussa silk is the most natural of the 3 fibers. Bamboo and viscose are more processed fibers, but in this one, I think the indigo is like this little strip right here is this violet Tussa silk. So you absolutely can use other fibers. You can use sari silk waste, whatever. Well, check out our wet felting playlist, and I think we played with a few different fibers. We made our own pre-felts, and I think we used a variety of fibers in making our own pre-felts, and then we made some silky papers that you can cut and use as inlays. So lots of options for surface design, and anything in our luster and luxury fiber category under felting woolen fiber you can use in this project. Any of it. Yeah, it'll all felt together. Anything else, Miss Ann? One more, she says. Okay.
Do you have any tips for keeping the rim of the bowl very straight and clean, the edge?
Okay, if you want to keep it like less organic than I did, if you want to keep this rim very, very straight, well, there's 2 things you can do. One is you can cut it. So you can cut that rim when you get to a certain point. If you just can't keep it straight and you want it to be really uniform, then while it's still wet and flat, lay it down, and I'll just go overhead real quick. And let me just zoom in a little bit here, just so you can see. Lay it down and cut it together, cut it at one time. And that's one way. But then after you cut it, you're going to need to heal that edge. So you're going to want to felt it down. Now the other way is, you noticed how we had our fibers going around. When you do your layout, and when you do your layout, that top rim, you want to be very mindful of that top rim being level and even, and just butt these fibers right up. But so also when you're felting, and when you're felting and fulling, what you can do is just tug. You'll just tug this up, and wherever this is up and you want it to go down, then you spot full, and you can roll there and you can rub there. So spot fulling and tugging will be your friend, and just constantly laying it flat and paying. And I'm feeling like we did this recently, where we were tugging and shaping. What did we felt recently? But this is what you would be doing: tugging and shaping, and then spot fulling where you want it to shrink in. And that's really all you have to do, is nurse it, baby it a little bit more as you're working with it, and just really pay attention to it. And that's a fun thing to do too, is just really go for control. We felted something recently where we did that. Anne's furrowing her brow, trying to remember. Come on in, we're gonna give away some prizes, y'all. If she remembers, we'll share it.
Was it the journal cover?
Maybe on the journal cover we were trying to make it really square, and so we made the journal cover using our handmade pre-felts and our silky papers, and then we felted a square basically to sew, or we didn't even sew it, we just formed it into a magic journal cover. So check that out too. If you're wanting to control your felt, you can even just try and control a straight square, and once you master that, well, then you can do it on just about anything. Cool. Thanks y'all so much for playing with us today. We're going to give away some prizes now. Remember, oh wait, we have a triple opportunity for prizes this week, and I didn't even tell you. So everyone who's still hanging around, you're like in the lucky group. So for the live folks, we're going to give away 2 prizes right now, and if your question didn't get answered, or if your name doesn't get drawn, comment down below after the live show. Tell us what was your favorite takeaway, or tell us what was still your challenge. So we're going to give away these prizes now, and then I'm going to tell you how else you can win a prize. All right, Anne, what are you giving away today?
Today we are giving away.
Show it up close. Yeah, show it.
We're giving
This
away
one.
up. There we go. We've got 2 ounces of merino top, and then 3 ounces total of viscose top, and of course you get to pick what colors
Yeah.
you get. I was just feeling these guys today.
Yeah, it feels very oceany. I love it. Okay, so we're going to give away 2 names right now, and if you don't win, you can also comment down below for a chance to win. Just like we gave away prizes at the beginning to those folks. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. You got one?
I got one.
I got one too. Okay.
First winner is Lori McMahon.
Woohoo! Lori McMahon and Julie Tolliver, right up there. There you go. Can you see them? We're in the light. I know. I'll spin around. Congratulations, gals, and thank you so much, everyone else. You still have a chance to win. Now, if you felt this vessel or one like it, even though it may not be the Simply Striking Fire Bowl, and I called it Simply Striking because it's simple to make, and it's striking because it's so shiny and fire because the colors. I don't care what colors you make. If you make a vessel as a result of watching today's video, tag us, post it online, tag us on Instagram or on Facebook, and you will have a chance to win either a LivingFelt tote bag. So this is like our badass, did I just cuss? Badass LivingFelt tote bag. Yeah, this is totally washable, and it's gusseted and it's really strong. Or you can win a LivingFelt t-shirt. Either one of those. So what you want to do is make your vessel, link back to this video, and tag us so that link back to it so other people can do it too, but tag us so that we can see you, and that's just at LivingFelt. So we are on Instagram, which I got to get back on Instagram. I've been kind of a hermit. You can also shop with us online. This is where we're using everything today. Make sure you go to the description, grab the download. If you had fun, we hope you'll consider giving the video a thumbs up. It helps other people find us, and join us over on Facebook. Hang out with us, ask questions, share your stuff. Yeah, we want to see you there. So thanks for playing with us, y'all, and be extra, extra good to yourselves today. You really deserve it. Right?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Bye, y'all. Have a great day.